So last week, Friday, I did a special live stream in the middle of the day because RFK Jr. was making an announcement. And my prediction was correct that RFK Jr., my prediction during that show, that RFK Jr. would be dropping out of the swing states and he would stay on the ballot in the other states and endorse Donald Trump. That was the prediction I made at the beginning of that show because I did see that he was in New York State fighting against that ballot case. And I was like, well, why is he there fighting for that if he's going to drop out completely? So I put 2 and 2 together, right? Now, since then, I do want to let you know that apparently he may not be able to remove himself off of all of the swing states because of certain deadlines that have already passed. Now, I do believe he removed himself from Pennsylvania and I believe Arizona, but he may not be able to remove all of them. He made his announcement in Phoenix, Arizona, and then he joined Donald Trump on the stage later on that day for the official announcement. I'm going to play part of this and then I'm going to have to mute it because of the music.
I don't think too many of you people have heard of him. He's very low key. He's a very low key person, but he's highly respected. He is a great person. I've known him for so long. For the past 16 months, Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
So RFK Jr. comes out on the stage here, and I muted the music because you guys know with copyright and all that kind of stuff. And just to give you an idea, apparently the Foo Fighters, because they play the song, there go the hero song, My Hero from Foo Fighters, which I love that song, by the way. And apparently the Foo Fighters were not happy about this. And they issued a statement saying that they do not want Donald Trump playing their song and they're going to raise money and basically give that money to Kamala's campaign. So they weren't happy about that. But long story short, RFK Jr. was very well received by the crowd. They seem to be happy with him being a part of the campaign, endorsing Donald Trump. It's still muted because they cheered for like this long, basically. That being said, they played the song, There Goes My Hero, again, alluding to the fact that politicians are heroes. And I've told you before, politicians are not heroes, right? So you have to stop calling them that. Don't expect them to be that. Politicians are not coming to save you. We have to save ourselves. And we do that through organizing. We do that through mutual aid. We do that through building dual power. And we need to move towards building a party for working class people, as I've said before. But he did join him there on the stage. The crowd loved it. I didn't hear anybody boo. So they were very pumped and amped about that. Now, as you can imagine, the Kennedy family is not happy about this at all. Now, they were upset that he even decided to run as a Democrat, which is how it started in the beginning. They were not appreciative of it. They said they don't agree with what he's doing and that they're going to support Biden. So because the Democratic Party played hardball with him and other primary candidates, RFK Jr. decided to leave the Democratic Party and run as an independent. The family came out and spoke out against him again. And so now he decided to remove himself from the swing states or the ones that he can and stay on the ballot in the other states so that in the red and blue states, if people still want to vote for him, they can. But he endorsed Donald Trump and now he's aligned with Donald Trump. And now that he's doing with Donald Trump, they're definitely angry with him. And so much to the point where I believe this is Karen. Let me double check her name. Is this Carrie? Yeah. So this is Carrie Kennedy, who has spoken out against RFK Jr. multiple times since he announced that he was running. And she's definitely speaking out again this time now that he's endorsed Trump. Listen to this.
You responded to this earlier. You said that this was a betrayal of your father's legacy. Why do you think so?
Well, I think, if my father were alive today, he would detest almost everything Donald Trump represents. His lying, his selfishness, his rage, his cynicism, his hatred, his racism, his fascist sympathies, his deliberate misinformation about vaccines, his criminal felony convictions, his contempt for the poor and suffering, for ethics, for democracy, and for healing. And his cruel sneering at human rights for suffering people in America and around the world, which is the cause that's so moved and motivated.
I just want to add, when it comes to that part that she mentioned there about Trump, the sneering about human rights, RFK Jr. has sneered about human rights with Palestinians. He was the one that went on to Breaking Points and said they're the most pampered people in the world. He's the one that is staunchly pro-Israel. Israel has a right to exist. Said the Palestinian people were lying. All these people that have been killed over there. So is he really that much different from Trump? Does Carrie really know Bobby in that way? Let's continue.
My father. So I'm outraged and disgusted by my brother's gaudy and obscene embrace of Donald Trump. I love my brother, but this is an outrage. And I completely disavow and separate and dissociate myself from him on this issue.
Look, I don't support RFK Jr. I think his position on Israel is absolutely disgusting. I don't support Donald Trump. He's also pro-Israel. I don't support Kamala Harris, also pro-Israel. But I gotta say something. If there is one family that has come out to repeatedly smear their family member that's a candidate, the Kennedys have been on it. Like, it's kind of weird, you know? Like, every time I turn around, they're on mainstream media and they're saying, like, my father would be appalled. My uncle would be appalled. Daddy would be appalled. And it's just like, who are you? Like, is this Dynasty? Like, I don't know. What is this? I feel like I'm watching a soap opera, like the 80s, you know, primetime soap opera Dynasty or something like that. It's really weird. Like, so you can't do things that are outside of the norms of the family. Is a family or there's a cult? Like, it make me feel some kind of way. It's just weird to me. Listen, there have been a number of times where I think people's parents may not have agreed with the decisions that they chose to make as an adult, but he is an adult. You know, I just don't get this. You know, people make their own decisions as adults. It is what it is. Aye.
Have you spoken to your brother lately?
No, I haven't. Bobby, I saw him a few weeks ago at my daughter Mariah's wedding. And but Bobby knows my view and my feelings very, very well.
That must be pretty difficult for you.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking because this is a time when there's so much at stake in this election. This is why almost every single person in my family is fighting so hard to reelect Kamala Harris and Coach Walz, because they've been champions of the values my family has fought for years. And Donald Trump is the polar opposite. He threatens the most basic freedoms that are core to who we are as Americans, for women to control their bodies, to live in communities safe from gun violence, which brought down Uncle Jack and Daddy, to love who you love, which impacts people in my family and people across our country and around the globe.
But why did RFK Jr. go in this direction? And here's one thing I will say is this. I think that it was a mistake for Kamala Harris's campaign not to at least meet with him and have the discussion. He reached out to both sides. And this reminds me when Ice Cube reached out to Biden and Donald Trump about his contract for Black America. And Ice Cube said, well, one side responded and said, let's meet. And that was apparently Donald Trump. And the other side said, well, we can talk after the election, which from what I understand, Joe Biden never had that conversation with Ice Cube after he won. So there's that, whatever it is, what it is. But I think it was a mistake when RFK Jr., which he confirmed that he did reach out to both sides to have a discussion about unity. And he said that obviously Donald Trump responded and said, let's have this discussion. And Kamala Harris's campaign they weren't interested in having that discussion. I think that was a mistake, because here's the thing. They don't know what he would have said. They don't know if he was going to offer to endorse or not. They really don't know because they did not have the conversation. So I think you never turn that away. If they reach out to you, especially considering the fact that he was an independent candidate, reaching out to you to say, let's have a discussion, let's talk something, I still think she should have entertained the conversation. Doesn't mean you have to agree with him. Doesn't mean you got to go along with whatever it is he's offering. But I think it was a mistake not to even have that discussion, because now that RFK Jr. has joined along with Donald Trump, the reality is, and you'll see this with the polls I show you, the reality is that is going to help Donald Trump and that is going to hurt Kamala Harris.
So, these are not light issues for me. These are issues that I've spent my entire life fighting for.
Okay, yeah. So again, it seemed like they weren't happy when he was a Democrat. They weren't happy when he was an independent. They're definitely not happy that he's joined with Donald Trump. But before we get to the Tulsi part, I just want to show you something about the polls. This factor with RFK jumping in on the Trump side, how this is now changing things for Kamala Harris. Check this out.
BBC Steve Kornacki's here to break down what it could mean with just 74 days until Election Day.
All right, well, we know, obviously, expecting a close election in November, so a development like Kennedy dropping out of this race could be significant. Look, he was polling. Let's take you through the history of this. We're going to start here. This is when Biden was still the candidate, pre-Harris as the Democratic candidate. And this is an average of all the national polls. So just before Joe Biden dropped out, on average, in a three-way race that included RFK, you see Trump was leading Biden. Kennedy was sitting there at 9.2% on average. And it was a lead there of 3.5 points. Donald Trump was leading Joe Biden. Now, Biden gets out of the race, Harris gets in the race, and that's been a little bit more than a month now. But you see Harris, Trump, Kennedy. A couple things you notice. Number one, in the month since Harris replaced Biden, the Kennedy support's dropped almost in half, now just over 5% on the average. And that Harris support relative to Biden, look at that. That's gone up significantly, almost 7.5 points. The Trump support is more level, only up about a point right there. So you could see Harris actually pulling into the lead here over Trump in the three-way now since she became the candidate. And here's where it gets interesting. What if, the polling's been out there without Kennedy? What does it look like, Harris versus Trump? And here you can see it. Harris still leads, but it gets tighter. Look, in a three-way race with Kennedy, Harris's margin over Trump is 2.7 points. Without Kennedy, Harris's margin over Trump is 1.6.
So actually, Kamala Harris would have been better off if RFK Jr. would have stayed in the race fully.
A little bit more than a 1 point tightening of the race with Kennedy out, according to the polls. And like these swing states, we talk about them. It's 10,000 votes here, 20,000 votes there. When you're talking about potentially the difference of 1 point, that could be massive. That could be enormous. So certainly that's why the Trump folks are excited to have Kennedy dropping out and getting on board with them. Now, the other thing, again, you notice here, we showed Kennedy support dropping. We see Harris rising relative to Biden. There's a relationship there. I want to show you two groups here. Two major groups where Kennedy has lost the most support since Harris got in the race. Latinos. Kennedy's support has dropped by 9 points with Latinos. Meanwhile, Harris's, relative to Biden, is up 12 with Latinos and younger voters. Kennedy's support has dropped 8 points with them since Harris became the Democratic candidate. Meanwhile, her support relative to Biden's up 17%. So there's been a relationship there. Harris has surged in part because she's taken votes that Kennedy had been getting. Now some of those remaining Kennedy votes may be a little more Trump friendly. We'll see if they transfer over.
Thanks.
And they will transfer over. I'm going to show you a more recent poll. Again, we'll have to check these throughout the week because along with the Tulsi endorsement, this is going to say something too. But this poll was released yesterday. Shout out to Yvette Carnell for posting this. The post polling averages, this is updated August 26th. That was yesterday. Trump is leading in 4 of the 7 battleground states. Now, we're already starting to see the shift that's happening here. We're looking at Michigan. Kamala Harris is still leading there. But again, by one, these are very close races, you guys, right? So North Carolina is Trump +1, Arizona, Trump +1, Nevada, Trump +2, Pennsylvania, Harris +2, Wisconsin, Harris +3, Georgia, Trump +3. So we are starting to see, and we'll continue to check them, but we are starting to see the beginning stages of RFK dropping out of some of the swing states and aligning with Donald Trump. We're already starting to see some of that. This is not fully yet. So remember the polls that I showed you last time, she had more momentum. She was winning in more of these swing states, or they were tied. But now things are starting to change, which means that the honeymoon period for Kamala Harris's campaign is starting to come to an end. Now, obviously, she did get a bump right after the DNC convention, which is normal. But the day after the DNC convention ended, RFK Jr. announced he was dropping out of the swing states, staying in the red and blue, which still could affect this race, by the way. The fact that he's still on the ballot in the red and the red states and the blue states, and the fact that he may not be able to fully remove himself from some of the swing states, which was brought to my attention recently. So he still may be a factor in that regard. And he has now joined along with Donald Trump. This is why I said it was a mistake for Kamala Harris to not at least meet with him, right? But they're all Zionists at the end of the damn day. Now, this one right here, the one responded to that poll from a vet and said, in the eyes of the media, Kamala is supposed to be running away with the election, and she isn't. And that's what I've been trying to tell you guys. Because when I talk to people on the ground, I'm not hearing that. All these headlines where they're saying Kamala's surging and these polls, and where they're saying she's taken off, she's got this, she's way ahead. When I talk to people on the ground, that is not the sentiment that I'm hearing from them, particularly when it comes to Black voters. I met one Black voter that said they're supporting Kamala Harris. One. And it ain't me. So this is why I've said this before. We got to talk about what's really happening. And now we are going to add a little bit of that spicy mustard on that damn sandwich. Because you had Donald Trump, you had J.D. Vance that he picked, who's from a swing state, or kind of from the Midwest. Ohio's not a swing state anymore, but from the Midwest. Then you had RFK Jr. that was added to that sandwich. And now Tulsi Gabbard has publicly endorsed Donald Trump. Some people on social media were surprised by this. I was not, because I saw this is where Tulsi was heading. I mean, Tulsi Gabbard is an opportunist. This is not surprising to me. I will give her credit for one thing. I give her credit for endorsing Bernie Sanders in 2016 instead of endorsing Hillary Clinton. Ultimately, that ended her career with the Democratic Party. She was supposed to be the DNC darling. She was going to be the next big thing, not Kamala Harris, mind you. When that did not work out with Tulsi, they moved on to Kamala Harris. You see what I mean when I say they select people? So she wasn't supposed to do that. So Hillary felt betrayed. And so the Democratic Party say, we're going to get back at you, Hillary. Then she ran for president in 2020. And then in 2020, when she dropped out of the race, she endorsed Biden, not Bernie. Like I say, she an opportunist. She be going, I guess that was her trying to say, I don't want that heat anymore from the Democratic Party. So this time I'm going to do what the establishment wants me to do, which was to endorse Biden. And now here she is endorsing Donald Trump. Honey, the grift has come full circle.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. Aloha. I know we got Hawaii in the house here. There we go. It is a privilege to be here with all of you, my brothers and sisters in uniform, especially on this day of all days. I had the privilege of joining President Trump this morning at Arlington Cemetery where he joined 2 Gold Star families and loved ones of Staff Sergeant Hoover and Sergeant G, both of whom were 2 of the 13 killed in the Abbey Gate attack 3 years ago today in Kabul. And I can tell you, as we were there, as he laid a wreath at the tomb of the unknown soldier, joining these Marines' loved ones, I felt the sorrow that he shared with them in their loss. I felt and saw his sincere appreciation for these servicemen and women who paid the ultimate price and their loved ones who continue to grieve to this day. This is personal for me, as I know it is for so many of you here. This is real. It's not just words. I first deployed to Iraq in 2005 with the Hawaii Army National Guard as a member of Charlie Med. As those of you who were deployed during that time know, it was the height of the war, and sadly, we took many casualties. And every day we were confronted with that high human cost of war and that sadness as we boarded the plane when we left, that we were leaving some of our brothers and sisters behind, only to lose others when we got home to suicide. So I mean what I say when I share with you that I know that President Trump understands the grave responsibility that a president and commander-in-chief bears for every single one of our lives.
Why did that happen with those soldiers there, Tulsi? That would be because of a failure of our healthcare system in this country, because the VA is trash. And I know personal experience, the VA is trash, because when those soldiers get back to this country, they don't care about those soldiers. Why do you think you see so many homeless veterans out on the street? They don't care about those people. Don't want to fix that healthcare system, though.
Whether you're a soldier, you're an airman, a Marine, sailor, or a coastie, he keeps us in his heart in the decisions that he makes. We saw this through his first term in the presidency, when he not only didn't start any new wars, he took action to de-escalate and prevent wars. He exercised the courage that we expect from our commander-in-chief in exhausting all measures of diplomacy, having the courage to meet with adversaries, dictators, allies, and partners alike in the pursuit of peace, seeing war as a last resort. The truth is, as we head towards our decision as a country in November, the same cannot be said about Kamala Harris. In fact, the opposite is true, and we're living through this reality today as this administration has us facing multiple wars on multiple fronts and regions around the world.
You support sending weapons to Israel. Tulsi Gabbard supports sending weapons to Israel. Look, don't get it twisted. Yes, the Biden administration has multiple wars that are happening throughout the world. I've covered that. I've talked about that. But don't get it twisted. Tulsi Gabbard supports Israel going in and doing what they feel they need to do. She has spoken about this multiple times on corporate media. She has tweeted about it. She said, give them whatever they need. Give them all the arms. Give them all the weapons. This is the same woman who spoke at the Rage Against the War Machine rally. And don't tell me it didn't happen. I was there. She spoke. We need to end these wars. End the wars. She was really good about the war in Ukraine. But once you change the country to Israel, she's totally fine with these wars. We're talking about a politician that has been against Islam and has criticized Islam and has condemned Islam for years. Let's go on.
And closer to the brink of nuclear war than we ever have been before. This is one of the main reasons why I'm committed to doing all that I can to send President Trump back to the White House, where he can once again serve us as our commander-in-chief. Because I am confident that his first task will be to do the work to walk us back from the brink of war. We cannot be prosperous unless we are at peace. And we can't live free as long as we have a government that is retaliating against its political opponents and undermining our civil liberties, weaponizing our very institutions against those they deem as a threat.
Now, of course, you guys, I think some of you know this, but Tulsi Gabbard apparently has been put on the do not fly list, right? So they've labeled her as a domestic terrorist, supposedly. She said that this has come from Kamala Harris, or she believes that's who it has come from. So there's that. I think that's where she might be going with part of this. But let's talk about the war aspect with Donald Trump. You know, I'm getting really tired of people pretending like Donald Trump is anti-war. He's not anti-war. During Donald Trump's presidency, you need to think about the fact that he implemented multiple coups in Venezuela, so much to the point that there have been books written about this. Anya Paul wrote a book about it. Everybody tends to just shrug this off, but it happened. Don't forget, he was bombing people in Syria. This is why you have to get outside of the two-party system. It will corrupt your mind, where you are forced to defend your party regardless of what they're doing, instead of paying attention to principle. He bombed people in Syria, kids. So the same way you see those kids being bombed in Gaza and you get all emotional and you're angry and you have every right to be and you should be, don't forget that also they were bombing them kids in Syria too. And that happened under Trump. Now, a lot of people come forward, and Tulsi will probably be one to say this. Donald Trump didn't create any new wars. That motherfucker didn't end any either. Make sure you add that part. Make sure you mention how Donald Trump has the deep state that was a part of his cabinet in 2016. And he has the deep state a part of his campaign right now with J.D. Vance and the connection with Peter Thiel. You cannot overlook these things. So this is what I'm saying. Is it possible that he could make it so that we're not leading towards World War III? Possibly. But people tell you anything when they're trying to get elected. Wake up. Let's continue.
Kamala Harris has done this over the last 3.5 years. She won't hesitate to continue that if she is elected as president. President Trump has been their first and foremost target in this because they don't want us as voters to even have the option to vote for him. I've been their most recent target, added to a secret domestic terror watch list after exposing the truth about what kind of dangers we would face if Kamala Harris is elected as president. We as Americans must stand together to reject this anti-freedom culture of political retaliation and abuse of power. We can't allow our country to be destroyed by politicians who will put their own power ahead of the interests of the American people, our freedom, and our future.
Honey, that's been happening for a long time. That did not start with this administration. Obama did that. George W. Bush did that. Bill Clinton did that. That's been going on for a long time.
I am proud to stand here before you today, whether you're a Democrat, a Republican, or an independent. If you love our country, as I do, if you cherish peace and freedom as we do, I invite you to join me in doing all that we can to save our country and elect President Donald J. Trump and send him back to the White House to do the tough work of saving our country and serving the people. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
So that's Tulsi Gabbard now endorsing Donald Trump, which I predicted that was going to happen. That's why I was surprised when so many people on social media said they were shocked by Tulsi Gabbard endorsing Trump. Like, how are you shocked? She made it very clear she left the Democratic Party. She's been criticizing it very heavily on Fox News, and she advocated for Donald Trump, right? So at one point, I believe she was trying to maybe get in to be part of the campaign at some point in time, but some people thought that he was going to choose her as VP, but that didn't happen. So I was not surprised by that. Now, here's the craziness. Now, you got RFK Jr. here. I had to double check and make sure this wasn't a parody account, but it's not. RFK Jr. says, Wonder Woman just joined the league. Did everybody see this? Wonder Woman just joined the league. So here he is referring to Tulsi Gabbard as some type of a superhero. Here we go again with the hero shit. Fiorella is a real one. Said all the hero worship for the genocidal Gabbard RFK team versus Coconut Kamala once again proves U.S. Americans are the dumbest people in the world, the most propagandized and entirely selfish. It also proves Israel will win this election. Enjoy the show. It's only the beginning. So you see what people are creating now? They're calling them Team Unity. They got Donald Trump as Captain America. Like, this is just cracking me up. They got RFK Jr. They even put Elon Musk up in this mofo, man. Elon Musk, the guy who's censoring people on Twitter, the guy who's canceling people on Twitter, and the same people who are talking about freedom of speech and censorship and suppression, they're all like, yeah, yay, Elon Musk. Vivek's back there in the background. You know, they got him there. And then they have JD Vance over here on the other side, and now Tulsi Gabbard. So you see the hero worship that we have in this, the hero worship with our culture that we have in this country. It's a big problem. And I've been calling this out for quite some time. Politicians are not heroes. And we need to stop treating them as such. Now, what can they do? They can pass legislation. They can implement executive orders, but even some of those have to be approved by Congress, right? So a lot of our attention needs to be focused on Congress, right? But the hero worship has got to go. It's got to go. And all of these people, they're all Zionist. All of them. Instead of Team Unity, should be Team Israel. You can add Kamala and we can change the people, right? Change the seats on the Titanic, and we can put other people there. We can put Kamala Harris here and Waltz. We can put them there, and you still got Team Israel. That being said, at the end of the day, are they as different as you think? I want to remind you of a time. Don't forget about this. Donald Trump donated to Kamala Harris's campaign. This is going to tell you again how this is a game. This is a game. And the American people are pawns. They're beating us at chess every time. So I want to remind you, Trump donated to Kamala Harris's campaign when she was California Attorney General. A lot of people forget about this. So look at this. Campaign finance records show Donald Trump donated twice, not once, but he donated to Kamala Harris twice to re-elect Kamala Harris as the Attorney General in California. So obviously, if he donated to Kamala Harris, he appreciated what she was doing as Attorney General. And Kamala Harris was a fucking cop. She locked up so many people. The judge had to tell her that they had too many people in the prison. She locked up a lot of black people, a lot of black men. Don't forget, she charged mainly black parents for truancy. She put black kids through the school to prison pipeline through that truancy law. So you got to remember, these people are all in the same club. They may be a part of different political parties, but at the end of the day, they all go to the same country club that you and I cannot even get in the front door of. And they play you. They play you. You don't donate to someone if you don't like what they're doing. So when it came to law, and I think this is why where Trump may struggle with the debate with Kamala, it may be difficult for him to debate against her about her record, where I say just focus on her record. It might be hard for him to do that because he donated money when she was Attorney General, and Kamala probably just clap back and she'll probably just say, well, if you had a problem with what I was doing, why did you donate money to? It's going to be harder for him to challenge her on that because she is pro-police. She is pro-cop. And calling Kamala Harris a communist, I think that is a losing strategy for the Republican Party. She was a cop. And she's corporate. All a part of the same game. And now that Tulsi Gabbard is now a part of this, I will say where this will help Donald Trump as well. I think it will, again, help him with the polls, but also Tulsi Gabbard is the one that dragged Kamala Harris on the stage and calling out her record. From what I understand, she is supposed to be working with Donald Trump to help him with that debate because she knocked Kamala Harris out with one punch. The problem that Trump will run into if he comes after that same record the same way that Tulsi did is that that's not a negative to his base, because if you're a conservative and you are pro-police, when you call out, oh, you locked up all these people, if you're pro-police, you might not see that as a negative thing. So he's going to have to figure that out. But Tulsi is with him now. RFK Jr. is with him now. This is my first time, since I started this show in 2021, participating during a presidential election. And this has been one hell of a freaking year. I'm just kidding. I didn't imagine any of this. I said this year was going to be wild, but it has been crazy. Now, you don't have to support Kamala or Trump. I sure as hell am not. Shama Sawant endorsed Jill Stein this week. Jill Stein said, I'm incredibly proud to have the endorsement of revolutionary Shama Sawant and her founding working class movement. This is someone who really does fight for the workers. Shama said, there is a sharp contrast in this election. That sharp contrast is not between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. Both Trump and Harris are warmongering representatives of the billionaires. The real contrast is between all these candidates and Jill Stein. And she's correct. You can support and vote for an anti-genocide, anti-Zionist, pro-worker, pro-reparations, pro-living wage, pro-healthcare candidate. And this is what the left used to strive towards. But after Bernie Sanders, it just seemed like people just willing to settle for anything now. Even some of the progressive commentators, let's just go with whatever we got. Let's just go with Kamala. Problem that you're running into this time around is that October 7th really make you look kind of bad. Really makes you look a little bad. So I will be supporting Jill Stein. I'm not supporting anybody in the two-party system. And for the people who like to voter shame, let me make something very clear to you. I'm going to need you mofos to learn how to do math. Because I'm seeing this one here. Terry loves America. Jill Stein is not on the ballot in all 50 states. This makes it impossible for her to win the presidency. But she can be a spoiler, just like she was in 2016. Given the election to Trump, don't waste your vote, Terry says. Terry loves America. But Terry apparently doesn't love math or civics. It appears we might have to do some type of a civics lesson on the show to explain to people how the Electoral College works. So I retweeted this and I said, that's not how math works. The Electoral College determines the election. Jill didn't win any Electoral College votes in 2016. Even if Jill wasn't on the ballot, I still wouldn't vote for Kamala. Jill is not a spoiler. She is the better option. 2.5K likes on that tweet. Let me break this down for people who may be confused. This idea that if Jill Stein or Cornel West or I think Dr. Kesheev is still on the ballot in some states, Claudia De La Cruz, if these people were not running, that we would support Kamala Harris is bullshit. If I wanted to vote for Kamala Harris, I would vote for Kamala Harris, okay? If Jill was not on the ballot, I just would not be voting for the president, but I would vote for the ballot measures and I would vote for, obviously, the congressional races. So that's that. Let's go ahead and debunk that, okay? Because they seem to think that because we see Jill there, we're not going to. No. 2, The Electoral College determines the election. The last time a third party candidate received Electoral College votes was 1968, and that was via George Wallace. All these people who come to you and they tell you that Jill cost Hillary Clinton the election don't understand civics and they don't know how to do math. Three, people need to understand that you have to build the third party movement. For all the people that say, oh, you're wasting your time and da-da-da. No, I would say wasting my time is continuing to vote for the Democratic Party that is not delivering anything to my community, to young people in this country. That was wasting my time. Voting for Barack Obama was wasting my damn time. Volunteering for Bernie Sanders just for him to turn over to the establishment and throw his movement away, that was a waste of my time. But what we need in this country is a worker party. We need a party for workers, and you have to build it. Everything is not going to be on a sheet of paper at the drop of a hat, just completely packaged up and ready for you. The problem is some people don't want to build anything. They just want what's already there. When you look back at Justice Democrats, this is what they tried to do. Democratic Party is already there, so let's just put them into that party and get them to change the party. In theory, it sounded like a good idea, but in practicality, it did not work because of corporate money and electoral politics that controls those politicians, including the Dem leadership. Did not work. So these people like Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, AOC is long gone cause. Just leave her alone. Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, some of the other squad members, well, that are now gone now. These politicians should have had a different party that they could have been a part of. A party that is pro-worker. A party that supports Medicare for all. A party that supports increasing the minimum wage, but also giving you a damn living wage. A party that supports housing for all. And don't even tell me we can't do it, because right now, boo, in California and Oregon, they already putting money aside to help people who just immigrated to the country, to help migrants get homes. I want housing for all. There should be a party for those people so that they do not have to sit in the Democratic Party that has moved further to the right, but is being called communist by the Republican Party, which is a load of bullshit. They should not have to sit and endure that and deal with that just because that's the way the system is designed. If you want things to change, you have to change the system. You cannot operate within those parties and change it. Shama Sawant started Workers Strike Back, out there advocating for the workers, trying to help people unionize across the country. But the goal of Workers Strike Back is to evolve into a workers' movement, workers' party. Something for the workers. These people are not going to fight for you in the duopoly. You watch the Democrats crush a railroad workers' strike. You're seeing it on both sides. They're bought by Wall Street, the military industrial complex, and freaking billionaires. It's just a reality, folks. So there needs to be something for those other people. The UK has multiple parties. They have a worker party in the UK, an actual worker party. I'm not talking about that damn Labour Party, but actual worker party. We don't have it. And I think those people deserve the right to have that. It is 2024. It is time for a damn change. I'm so sick of this. Oh God, we're stuck with this person and that person again. I'm so sick of it. And I'm sick of people looking towards these people as some like a hero. People are literally sitting at home waiting to November saying, who's going to be the one to save us? And every election cycle, no one's going to save you. Jill Stein isn't going to save you either. She is a small piece of the puzzle to building something greater. But we have to seriously organize, get motivated. And the other thing is we have to pay attention to what is happening locally. A lot of these people running, they're making a lot of good promises. And a lot of these things cannot be done unless it's passed in Congress. And they're not telling you that. And even when Bernie Sanders ran and he said, I would implement Medicare for all on day one, Bernie didn't tell you it still has to pass through Congress. So when people say you're throwing away, you're not throwing away your votes. You're making a statement and you're working to build a larger thing. After November, when this campaign's over, after November, Shama Sawant and Jill Stein are still evolving a movement. What's Kamala going to be doing? What's Trump going to be doing? And everyone else will go back to sleep like sheep.